Morning everybody and welcome to the midweek market update live stream from Smack the Markets. We've got some interesting markets going along this morning. Morning Miles. So as usual, if I can ask you to read through the risk disclaimer, make sure that you're comfortable with it before continuing on the trading session this morning. In brief, we're not licensed to be able to give advice. The markets that we discuss are purely our opinion and purely should be taken in the context of education. Morning, Michael. So we've got some interesting things developing in the markets at the moment. We've got I think by far the most interesting markets are the yens, Swisses, Great British pounds, and now the Kiwi markets, which all seem to be starting to develop trends, which is something we haven't really had the pleasure of for quite some time. Okay, so please make sure that you're comfortable with the terms before continuing on the webinar, the session this morning. So let's take a quick review of the markets that we discussed on Monday, and also let's have a look at what's going on and where we might sort of focus our attention today. Now, Fergal's already done a good sort of synopsis of what's been going on with the morning prep. But I think there's other markets now that are really starting to move as well. So through the session today, there's lots going on. If you're seeing anything of interest, please post it in the chat box and we'll go and take a look at those markets as well. So, I mean, first of all, if we take a look at what happened with the Dow, I mean, pretty much what we discussed on Monday has pretty much played out. So we said really with the Dow that we were looking for this sort of weakness that was coming in at the beginning of the market, beginning of the week. We were looking for that sort of 31,115 as a decision point, as that sort of trading window to close. And you can see that the market pretty much bounced off that level yesterday. Interestingly, this was, sort of driven and retraced by the words of Mr. Powell and his testimony on monetary policy around the sort of pandemic in the US. So all US indices actually had quite a rebound yesterday after what has been going on, which is very much a stock rotation where companies are starting to and funds are starting to readjust their portfolios to the world of, well, getting back to normal sort of economics, really. And we're seeing a sort of quite a rotation out of the sort of tech stocks and back into the old names like travel and airlines and cruises, believe it or not. So there's quite a bit of that going on, and that's likely to continue for a while, I should think, until that's sort of flushed out the system. Now, the Dow has remained sort of fairly buoyant compared to the S&Ps and the NASDAQ because of that, because, of course, this is a heavyweight in industrials. But we're likely to see some fairly sort of choppy price action, maybe some sort of sideways price action here for a while whilst that sort of rotation takes place. Now, at the moment, again, these markets rather sort of, particularly the Dow, I think, sort of rather difficult to establish trading opportunities and direction as to where it is now. Once it started to move and we're starting to clear some of these trading windows, that was much easier. But now coming back up into all of this congestion, not quite so easy. Morning, Andrew. Hi, Patricia. So again, very much intraday opportunities, I think, on these at the moment. If we have a look at this on the daily time frame, you can kind of see the picture a little bit more. I mean, just look at the candles here, sort of these big doji candles. These are daily candles, just indication of of what's sort of going on. Markets sort of testing extremes, but not willing to hold at those levels at this moment in time. So again, we'll take a look at the Dow closer to the open, and we'll see how this sort of develops. But longer term, I would say that the Dow is probably more poised, and this is a sort of fundamental view, of course, it's more poised for sort of strength than the S&Ps and the NASDAQ, well, particularly the NASDAQ. If this sort of stock rotation continues, and we see the continued sort of move towards reopening up of the normal economy. So let's have a look at what else happened. Now, gold, if we have a look at the gold market here. So what we were looking for here on gold was the retracement back up into this 1800 level. So we got the retracement back up into 1800 and then back up into 1810. So there's actually two levels here on gold that you'd have seen on my charts, 1800 and 1810, and the price, and gold is now sort of sitting right at those sort of price points. I think from a technical perspective, gold is still tough to trade at these sort of areas from a technical perspective, because the trends are still looking rather short. So from a technical perspective, they're still weak. And we looked at this on the daily time frame. We just sort of zoom into this. You'll actually see that we've got a setup around these key levels here, short forming on gold. So I think from again, we got two stories here, and I'll show you silver in a minute, and we'll talk through what's going on with silver. But I think we almost got sort of two things going on here. For a precious metal short, then we could look at gold here with a stop above the high, and looking at entries here to the short side below that, and that's going to be below that 1800. And of course, we'll be looking for 1750 to be tested to the short side on this, which would be a new lower low and a continuation of the trend. However, if we come back to gold and silver, of course, they tend to continue in similar correlations. If we look at silver, this one, as I mentioned, if the gold got above those 1800 level, then silver would start to look more interesting to the long side. And that's what we've got here with silver. So silver is, much more supportive. It's not actually as weak as gold. And now we've got the market moving back up to these levels and looking quite nice from a long perspective. So which one am I looking at? Well, it's rather sort of, it depends on your opinion here as to whether the gold and silver correlation is going to stay intact. But I quite like the idea here of silver above this level. We've got sort of fairly reasonable trading window to the top side up there to around that sort of $30 level. And I think that gold's travel to the short side is likely to be relatively limited. Now, whether that means that it's going to test 1750 first, we'll have to wait and see. But I'm preferring here opportunities here on silver. So again, if we get silver to, let's be a little bit more cautious about this. Let it break above the level first, and then start to look for some entries on the pullback, and that'll just give us a bit more sort of confirmation on that. So the other markets that we looked at on Monday were the dollar yen, and again, this one is actually playing out quite nicely now. Again, it's yens across the board really. So the yen and also the pound yen that I mentioned also are playing out quite nicely, and this is all to do with the weakness in the yen that's sort of been dominating, or one of the dominating themes of this week. So of course, dollar at the moment is switching as the days as we move through the days, really. So it is in the context of a short trend, and it is around that critical level of that 90 price point. But if we can get here, I think one of the themes to look at is the continuing strength in the yen. So on that note, let's have a look at some of these yen markets and see where we might see some potential setups. Now, of course, dollar yen had a pullback into the daily the daily fair value area, and now we've got that sort of break to the long side. So from a higher time frame perspective, it's not looking too extended, but we need to come down to these lower time frames, like the 15-minute time frames, to start to see some market structure within the context of trends. So on dollar yen, we've got a trading window here at the moment from about 105.50. That's this area here up to that 106. Which is off the chart up here. So we've got a fairly decent sized sort of trading window to the long side. I'll just take a look at this on the higher time frames. You got that sort of 106 is just up here, so we've got plenty of distance to the long side on dollar yen, but we really need to wait for better opportunities as the market sort of pulls back into the moving averages and look for sort of setups. So other yen markets, what other ones have we got that are looking potentially interesting that could look closer? So we're seeing some of these actually are retracing slightly. If we have a look at some of these other yens, now Kiwi, as we can see, rather sort of similar. Let's see what we've got going on here. So we've got some reasonable levels here for technical analysis. Now 77, we've got a pivot point at 77.70. This level through here is 77.81. So we've got a nice sort of cluster here within a few pips of analysis of support. So if we see some retracement back this far, then there are some nice areas here to start to look at positioning on the Kiwi yen. So I would say that around 77, well, certainly around 77 sort of 80. I think there's some others that could look rather interesting too. Now, if we have a look at the Kiwi, and again, let's see where the best. We just had this sort of turnaround here. Now, we'll have a look at this on the higher time frames, because if we look at this on the 4, you've got this these sort of highs here, which the market's sort of hanging around at the moment. So we either need some sort of decent retracement or a continuation. It's just not easy to be looking at sort of getting in at this moment in time on the Aussie yen. Now, I think the Great British Pound against the yen probably looks a little easier at this moment in time. So we're starting to form a bit of a level here. In actual fact, what we can't see on this platform, and what you normally see on my platform, is the pivot points. And we've got Smack the Markets, that's London timeframe pivots, sitting here at these highs. So we can see that's containing the market at the moment. And again, trend structure here, fairly reasonable to the long side too. So we've had one test, we've got a second test. Actually, if we've got a retracement and a third test, we could be looking at a potential breakout here. Let's see how the indicators continue here. They're starting to converge. And I think this is probably one of the better looking yen markets, or the closest, I should say, for a potential entry on these sort of lower time frames. So let's have a look at some of the Swissy markets. Which one should we start with? Have a look at pound Swiss. So of course, higher time frames, you know, we've got very nice moves on this. Of course, you know, all of these markets are going to be welcoming a retracement at some point in time. So that means the quality of entry really that we look at needs to be very reasonable. The thing that I'm not quite so easy on this one is that the technical structure, when we start to get down the time frames, not looking quite so nice on this one. £1 against the let's see where we our fibs. Okay, so we're coming back into this sort of area here between the 50 and the 61% fib level. If we've got some sort of setup in here, then we have got a bit of a level sort of forming through here, which could start to look a bit nice with these highs. But it's not particularly clean, is it? Let's see what else we've got out there. So like the other Swissy markets, that Kiwi Swiss is looking quite nice. Again, if we look at the higher time frames, we've got very strong moves. We can see here on the 1 hour chart, the market started to retrace. And just seeing here on the how things might sort of set up here. So that's the breakout level. So the 61.8% fib level pulls him back in with the breakout level, fairly close. And it's also tying in with the moving averages as well. So actually if we get a retracement back into this area, this could be one of the better ones to keep an eye on. So that level there is around that 66.88, just below that 66.88 area here. Okay, so let's what other Swiss markets have we got here? I think looking rather similar to this is the Caddy Swiss as well. So very similar in structure, actually possibly looking a little nicer, I think. So the trend structure looking much nicer there on the sort of 1 hour chart. So again, if we start to look at this on the 15, we've got a nice pullback area here, which is around that 61.8% fib level, pulling back into these recent highs on the market too. So there's that's the sort of breakout level as well, and we got the moving average zone there too. So that actually ties in very nicely on the 15-minute chart and the 60-minute chart as well. There might actually be a possibility for a setup on the 60 with the momentum trade. I'm not sure we'll have we wouldn't have a breakout as such, but we could take a wider one with a rebound trade as well. And we're looking at stops underneath these lows. Okay, so if we have a look at those Kiwi markets, actual fact, so this Kiwi CAD I think might be worthwhile taking a look at. Let's just run through what's going on here. So I mean, the Kiwis, you know, had a good move last night on the news. As Fergal explained this morning, we've got here on the daily, the market really starting to break out of this range now, which is nice. So we're starting to develop some moves here. If we have a look at the 4-hour chart, you can see got some big, powerful momentum here. Trends really starting to develop on these lower time frames. If we come back to that 15-minute chart, we can really start to see the detail in here. So again, let's have a look. Let's run our fibs in. So again, it's not a wonderful level through here, but we certainly got a few things tying up. Now, I don't have any pivots in here. Oh, actually, let me check. I do, in fact. So, in fact, we've got pivots tying in with this nicely, actually. So, right on top of this level that I've marked in my chart, we've got a pivot point right underneath that ties in with these highs here. So actually a pull back into the 61.8% fib retracement back into this level also sits into the moving averages and also a pivot point as well. And the indicator convergence here actually looks really reasonable as well. So actually that would be probably one of the better ones from a technical setup perspective, and it hasn't got far to retrace further to get back into this price point. So I think actually the Kiwi CAD probably looking one of the nicer ones out of those Kiwi markets. The other thing to just to consider here, we've got that 92, that real key 92 level on this market, which is just underneath price. I'm not sure if we're going to see enough data. So you can see it here actually. There is a nice level on this market. Here we go. So you can see we've got very nice level on this market. This is the weekly chart, but you can see how far it goes back. And we start to let's come down to the lower time frames to make it easier. There's our level tying up nicely. So this actually is looking particularly nice if that market actually pulls back into this area. A big number, of course, on this market being 92, which price has broken through, and the market's actually broken through this now. So we've actually got that now above that key 92 level as well. I'm just making adjustments to my watch list here. Right. Okay. So what other ones have we got moving? So we looked at CAD Swiss. We've got Kiwi Swiss, Kiwi CAD. They're retracing. Let's have a look at the Great British Pounds. The cable seems fairly pegged at the moment, doesn't it? I think that's the result of the dollar than anything else. So I'm not seeing anything too interesting on those sterling markets just at the moment. Or possibly, actually, let's come to the here on the on cable. We're sort of starting to look a little bit more interesting here on the hourly chart. We've got the key 142 just above price here at the moment, I think, which is and this of course is going to be mainly driven by what that dollar does. So what else is looking interesting? I think from a bullish perspective, the pound cable here. Probably one of the easier ones at the moment. So let's have a look at the dollars now. So Kiwi dollar is starting to retrace. So Andrew, the Kiwi CAD, do I prefer it as a moving average play? Let's go back to it. So I always prefer a moving average setup if I can, if we get one, because of the tighter stop. So again, if we got to pull back into this area, we're likely to see a candle form here, I would expect, and then it gives you the opportunity to be able to get priced in with the price action. So you wait for the bullish candle to form. So I prefer, to answer the question easily, yes, I prefer that to be a moving average setup in here. That's coming back in nicely. So I've got that one on the watch list. I'm hoping Fergal's scribbled that down as well, because I've actually got quite a few that I've been scribbling down as I've been going through these this morning. I'm just looking at the Aussies at the moment, and if we so I think that I just want to have a look at that Aussie dollar. And the reason here is I can see that this is, we've got this sort of consolidation going on here on the 15-minute chart. And of course, that's always looking sort of fairly interesting from a sort of a breakout perspective here. But I'm just having a look, see what the whole story is, of course. So actually, I think this is looking sort of fairly interesting. So let's just come out of this. So we've got a level here. We've had the pullback. We haven't really got much of a trend on the 15-minute chart, but we've got these higher lows forming here. So nice. The potential here, if this market breaks out of this level, we've got some nice placements for stops, either underneath this as quite an aggressive one at the moment, or a more conservative one under here. If we just come up the time frames. Now, the other thing that you can't see here, which you can see on my charts, but not on these charts, is we've got a pivot point on this level. So we've got a pivot point with our London coding here. So that's just reinforcing that price point. But also, if you come up to the 4-hour time frame and you start to look at this on the 4-hour, you can see where we are on the 4-hour. This is sort of almost sort of setting up a breakout on the 4-hour too. Now, I quite like the candles here, these just doji style candles forming here. We've got higher lows as well. So it's tight here. We've got a fairly tight range if this market breaks out. So I think this Aussie dollar is also something certainly to keep an eye on. And it's probably one of the easier dollar ones. As I say, then you've got dollar yen, which has had a nice move already. And Likewise with the whole yen complex, we'd need to see some sort of retracement on that one. The Swissy is a very nice market, of course, but the Swissy is sitting on top of a level at the moment. So I've got a level in there on the daily time frame and the 4-hour time frame, and price has just retraced straight back into that level. So I think I'll prefer the Aussie out of those. Okay, so we've been through the yens, the Swisses, the Kiwis, and the Great British Pound markets, and I've also had a look at some of the dollars. I think we've got quite a few there to keep an eye on and add to that watch list. The other one that we'll just finish up with here is, let's just have a look at this Kiwi. Now, the Kiwi markets, as Fergal mentioned this morning, they all had that strong move last night. We come down the time frames here on the Kiwi. You can see where the news volatility is, so we'll sort of kind of discount this a little bit, although it's still in the context of the trend on these lower time frames even. But we had this move, and now we're starting to see the retracement coming back in. So again, we're now coming back into this zone of moving averages as well. Now we don't have any pivot points, so we do actually have some pivot points, I should say, but it's a little bit lower from where we are. So pivots are in here. But you can see that we're coming back into the moving average zone here. Let's just start to run our fibs in here, which ties up sort of pretty nicely with the 61.8% fib retracement level as well. So actually we've got a sweet spot in here too. So that 50 to 61 fib retracement level, the pivot point sits around the 61.8% retracement level, and we've got the moving average cluster here as well. So actually a pullback into this area is an area where we can actually start to look at potential turnaround in price. So that's on the Kiwi dollar as well, and that's the 15-minute chart. Okay, so quite a few markets there to keep an eye on. There's some much more interesting markets at the moment, with now prices started to stretch out a little bit, and we're starting to see some of these currency pairs breaking out of their sideways ranges, and long may it continue. We might actually start to get some longer forming trends, and that makes life a little bit more easier, of course. Okay, so let's start to wrap it up here. We've been going for 40 minutes. We've got quite a watch list here to keep an eye on. So we'll continue in the trading room, and I'll keep you posted on anything else that I'm seeing set up, and we'll define those setups in the trading room. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for attending. I certainly hope you found it useful, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thank you. Bye for now.